22 minutes before 8 here on this Friday morning. Let's tackle an issue that is very sensitive and close to a lot of people. The feud over child maintenance between popular parents on social media has renewed conversations about lived realities for so many South Africans. By law, both parents have a duty to maintain the child according to their respective means. And with the amendments to the Act, which came into effect this year, the Department of Justice now has the right to trace defaulters through their cell phone service providers and blacklist them with credit bureaus. That's very interesting. As measures have seemingly been put in place for the benefit of the child, questionable actions by parents themselves sometimes infringe on the rights of the parties involved. Let's get into this conversation now, and joining us via Skype, we've got Felicity Guest. She's the founder of Child Maintenance Difficulties in South Africa. Felicity, great to have you. Thank you very much for your time.
Morning, Leanne. Thank you for having me. Morning to your guests.
Let me introduce my guest in studio. We've got Hanoneshea Hendricks. She's the National Legal Manager of Civil Matters at Legal Aid South Africa. Hanoneshea, thank you. Good to have you.
Good morning.
You know, this is
Morning.
It's such an important conversation. Let me begin with our studio guest, Hanoneshea. How prevalent and widespread would you say disagreements between parents and child maintenance are?
It's quite widespread. The statistics from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development showed in excess of 200,000 claims or complaints, applications for maintenance orders laid a year. So it's quite widespread where people have to access or try to access the courts to force the other party to pay maintenance.
Yeah, I mean 200,000. It's a big number, and those are just reported cases. I'm sure that there must be so many more.
Yes, actually those are the ones that goes to court.
Yeah.
In terms of the maintenance orders at the local court. But then you also have matters where parties get divorced, and there's also the question of maintenance in those matters. So it's quite widespread.
Yeah, Felicity, your organization, I mean, obviously there's a reason why you started it. What was behind you starting this kind of organization?
Due to my own journey, one night I came back from court and I was absolutely devastated again because it was just another postponement. And I lay in bed and I thought, what on earth are other women doing? Because this is so tough. And I started this Facebook group. And it's really grown in the last year and a half. We went from 5,700 to like 40,000 in just over a year. And through, as the members joined, I started seeing patterns and that I'm not the only person going through this.
Yeah.
So it's everywhere in the country.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I mean, I think you've obviously touched on quite a sensitive issue, and an issue that is very, very widespread. Now, when you say your court battles, was it in a divorce with your husband, or was it just trying to get child maintenance? What was the background to what your case was all about?
Mine was a divorce matter, but my particular case started with a fraudulent divorce. Okay. When I asked for a divorce, a couple of months later, I actually was divorced fraudulently by my ex. So my journey has been particularly problematic.
Yeah.
Then eventually, when I got divorced, because I had his divorce set aside, and then I got divorced. And then I entered into the maintenance system because I thought at least, now that the divorce has gone through, I have a maintenance agreement, I can enforce that. But I couldn't. I spent days and days and days sitting in court trying to enforce a high court order. And I have a mentally challenged son, and at the time I had two other children that were also still minors.
Wow.
So that was my journey.
Yeah, and that's.
But it doesn't seem to matter whether it's a divorce or if you. What is problem is that we have a court order that we are not able to enforce. In fact, I went further to get a protection order for financial abuse because my ex owed me so much money, and I'm now today in the situation where I can't enforce a protection order for economic financial abuse.
Yeah. I mean, your story, Felicity, is, I imagine, and Hanoneshea, let me ask you, what you're hearing Felicity talk about, this must be something that you see on a daily basis.
Yes, definitely we see these kinds of things where the other party is trying to evade the obligation in terms of an order. People that has an order in their hand find it difficult to enforce those orders. They become very frustrated with the fact that they have a legal order in their hands, but they cannot in fact get the other party to pay in terms of that order. And we must remember that at the end of the day, there's children that still need the support. They need to eat, they need to school, they need to do all those other things.
Yeah.
And so it becomes very important that action is taken immediately, or that orders people are able to enforce it as and when they need it.
Yeah. What is the problem? Why can you not enforce those? I mean, why is it that we've got to spend days and months and years sitting in court to try and get this through? You've got the order, and yet it can't be followed through. What's going on?
In my experience, it is different in different circumstances. Very often it's the other party that is throwing various obstacles in the way. And those obstacles could be things from trying to prove to the court they cannot afford, they don't have, they're trying to hide assets, or that they have the funds to comply with the order. They themselves are trying to hide, and that is where this new amendment comes in. That could be helpful, where you can use the cell phone company, or the cell phone company can give the details of addresses that they have of defaulters, so that you can actually try to find the other party where a complainant is finding it difficult to find their party. So the cell phone details is not only to blacklist them, but you can also use that information to find somebody
them. And
yes.
that's a big thing. Felicity, your views on this new amendment that's come through. Do you think that this is a good step? I see a big smile on your face. I'm not sure if it's a sarcastic one.
No, it is very much. I mean, the amendments actually came through a year ago. And at the time, I was interviewed, and we had the head of department of the Western Cape on the same platform. And I said, what is the point of bringing new amendments in if we can't even enforce the Basic Maintenance Act?
Yeah.
And my words have proven true. So here we are a year later. There's not a single person who has been blacklisted. Not one.
And that's worrying.
And that was a year ago. So we have this incredible Maintenance Act that is based on the Bill of Rights, which is enshrined in the Constitution. Our children have a constitutional right to be supported and to be looked after by parents, but also by the ultimate guardian of the children, which is our judiciary, which is our courts. And they are failing the children, because I've got women on my group, Leanne, who are 10 years in arrears, and their ex-partner, they provided as much proof as they can that he has the assets or he is working. Yeah. The judiciary has no teeth. I'm sorry, it's as blatant as that, but the maintenance officers have got no teeth. The prosecutors have no will, and the magistrates are just shoving another file in front of them to get out of the way so they can get on with the next criminal matter. Because there's not that many family courts. Most maintenance magistrates deal with all sorts of criminal cases, and what is a maintenance case for them?
Yeah. Meantime, a maintenance case is at the root of a lot of family issues and a lot of problems with bringing up a kid, not having enough money, and being forced to do things that you don't want to be doing. Let's talk about. We saw recently there was a big Twitter war going on between a couple, quite a well-known couple here in South Africa, who were really airing their dirty laundry out in public, and they were showing bank statements as to how much is being paid, the one accusing the other of not paying, and many other things, but living a lifestyle on Instagram and whatever else that was nowhere in accordance to what it was that he was paying. I think between 2,500 and 3,000 rand a month. Now, I want to talk about values and numbers now, Hanoneshea. Sometimes parents demand exorbitant amount of money, but what is a livable amount of money that you should be getting from your child's father, or whatever the case may be?
Leanne, it's difficult to say, to pin it down to a specific number. It really depends on the lifestyle of the parents involved, the children, the area they live, the needs they have. So what the court is supposed to do is the court is supposed to look at the needs. So the custodial parent would present the needs of the child, which includes everything, medical, school, all the needs that the child would have, and then look at the means of the non-custodial parent that is supposed to pay maintenance. So you can't really put a 5,000, a 10,000 or 20,000 rand and say this is the limit that should be there for maintenance in general.
So it is a circumstance, it is what the person is earning. But I mean, if you look at what a child needs, I mean, you just already said it, you know, whether it be a baby that's needing nappies, that's needing food, that's needing a daycare, that's needing medical aid, medicine. I mean, it is very, very expensive. And I mean, you know, this is something that for one parent, it's a difficult ask.
Yes, no, I agree. It is not that it is, for lack of a better word, cheap.
No.
You know, it is expensive to raise a child, and it depends on your circumstance. If somebody works, they need people to look after their child.
Yeah.
If they cannot stay at home to look after their child themselves, they need to have a nanny. They need to have people that attend to other needs of the child after school, the after care, those kinds of things. And it costs money.
It does. It certainly does. But the reality is as well, is that on the other side of the scale, you also do get mothers that lie about non-payment from fathers, and they kind of use the child to bait and demand more payment. You must see cases like that too.
Yes, that is a sad situation where parents try to use the situation or the child to get back at the other party. And, you know, the message one would try to get to people is to say that this is about the interests of the child. It is the child's right to maintenance, and we need to focus and remain focused on that issue and try to move away or forget about the emotions that might be there and the relationship that might be there between the parents, and focus on this is for the child. Also think of, you mentioned, you know, this Twitter spat or Twitter war.
Yes.
Think of the impact it will have on a child. As parents, we are the role model, maybe the first person the child sees, this is how an adult should act, and we should think of what that conduct, the impact of our conduct now would have on the kind of adult the child would be.
I understand what you're saying, but I bring Felicity into this, and I can imagine, you know, having been through it and having spoken to a lot of people on your Facebook group, leaving emotion out of this is almost impossible, isn't it, Felicity?
Absolutely. I know from our own journey that we have an expectation from our ex-partner, and then we also have an expectation from the law. So when both of those are not met, it just leads to huge disappointment, and we all process that differently. But what is a common thread? I have nearly 50,000 people on my group, and the common thread is the emotional impact. And the problem with that is that the judiciary doesn't take that into account. So for a mum who's absolutely desperate financially, she's behind on school fees, she's had to take loans, she can't feed the kids unexpectedly get sick. If she's not financially if she's not financially supported, it puts a huge amount of stress, because as a mother, the first thing is I'm not good enough. How am I failing my children? Mm-hmm. And then to go into the system and be systematically abused by the system. I have a common belief that reasonable people don't end up in the maintenance system because they don't need to be told to financially support their children. Yeah. We do that. It's instinctive.
Yeah.
So the ones that are ending up in the system either don't have lost their moral compass or never had one. They either are incredibly hurt, or they have narcissistic or personality disorders or behavioral symptoms.
Yeah.
Because who goes to bed without supporting their child?
Yeah. Hanoneshea is agreeing with you here in studio, yes. Very, very much so.
Yes, no, absolutely. I want to add on that, and speaking to non-custodial parents specifically now, that the fact that a mother or the custodial parent needs to go and enforce or force that you pay maintenance.
Yeah, look after your own child.
Yes, you know, it is not personal. The mother is trying to act in the best interest of the child. So it is not that the fact that they're trying to do that should not be seen as getting back at me, which I sometimes find in practice that the other party thinks that they're trying to get back at you. That is not it. They are just trying to protect the interest of their child and in terms of the right to that support.
Yeah. What do you believe? And perhaps I can ask both of this, this question to both of you. Felicity, what do you believe needs to be changed? What is an amicable way to reach an agreement between parents to put the best interests of the child first?
I think that people who are having to go to maintenance court, I think it should become mandatory that they go for counselling of sorts, because they're there essentially because of unresolved conflict. If there wasn't some kind of conflictual residue, they would amicably come to an agreement, because it becomes a power play, or there's abuse carried over from a past relationship. That's from the parents' point of view, but the courts need to start enforcing the Maintenance Act that they have.
Yeah.
There's no enforcement, and so without consequences, what is the deterrent?
Indeed. I mean, if you're saying that there hasn't been one single case of a blacklisting, it is not working. Hanoneshea, can you comment on that? I'll ask you about your solutions as well. But I mean, the fact that this legislation has come in, and we know that it's happening, we know that maintenance is not being paid, and yet we've got this legislation, but it hasn't been enforced as yet.
I don't know why the Department of Justice wouldn't be enforcing it, so I don't have any information.
Can't comment on that one. Okay, because I mean that is already, you know, you look at this and you think, okay, so the law is there to protect me, but not a single case has been reported that's been blacklisted. Unless you at home have been and you'd like to write to us, we'd love to hear from you. At Morning Live SABC, that's our Twitter handle. Please do write to us if in fact we've got these numbers wrong, but that's what we're saying, is that not a single blacklisting has taken place. So again, I ask you the same questions I asked Felicity. Felicity recommended counselling. You know, there's obviously issues between the two of them. Maintenance courts need to enforce. What do you believe? I mean, what should be done, or what should be changed to put the children at the centre of all of this and their best interests first?
I think something that the court can consider is compulsory mediation, so that parties can see if they can come to an agreement. I do know that mediation is a long process, and we still need to keep in mind that in this process there's an actual need that still needs to be met. So an interim order pending the finalization of the mediation should also be something that is implemented. But the reason I would think mediation is so that you can try and keep the relationship between the parents intact at the end of this whole process.
Yeah. Your organization, do you help people that cannot afford to help themselves? Because it is an expensive mission as well, to go through the courts, go to court, work on divorce settlements, and hire a lawyer. I mean, do you help people through this process?
Yes, so Legal Aid South Africa assists in maintenance matters. When somebody has been trying for 12 months and longer to enforce an order, or to get an order, Legal Aid South Africa will assist. Prior to that, Legal Aid South Africa will assist when the other party comes to court with an attorney, so that there's equality of arms at court.
Okay. So that's where
that
we can get hold of you.
We have a qualification in terms of that we have to conduct a means test. So you still have to qualify in terms of our means test, because Legal Aid South Africa assists people that cannot afford the cost of private legal representation. So that is the first step. But the second step is the two instances that I have mentioned. So people can come to our offices. We do have 128 contact points across the country. And if I may, I can give our toll-free number so that your listeners can call them to find out where they can go to assist. So from a landline, our toll-free number is 0800 110
Yeah.
110.
Right.
And then for people that only have cell phones, we also have a Please Call Me service, and the number is 079 835 7179.
Okay, 7179.
So,
Okay.
so that is a legal aid advice line where you can contact us for free legal advice or to connect with one of our offices.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Felicity, I know you want to add in there. I'm going to let you just quickly finalize your thoughts.
Sorry, the problem with that is there's a missing middle, because if you don't qualify for legal aid, and that's a majority of my members, they don't qualify for legal representation, and they are the ones who have particular difficulties because the exes can afford legal representation.
Yeah.
It's problematic, that.
It is, and I tend to agree with you, because I have a friend who's going through the same issue. So Felicity, I do hear your voice on that, and perhaps that middle ground is what we need. Felicity, thank you for talking. I know we've only touched the surface here. Felicity Guest, founder of Child Maintenance Difficulties in South Africa. She has a Facebook group you can go and find.